Good evening, and welcome to this edition of In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. I'm Eric Marsh, Executive Director of WCTV, and glad you're able to join us for this edition of the In Focus program. Before we get into the show, a couple of things I want to remind you of. Holiday season, lots of things going on. We want to make sure you have a chance to get out and enjoy what's going on in the community. The Wayne County Historical Museum is having their Gingerbread House competition. Now, the date for this originally, if you saw the original flyer, had passed, but they have extended it. December 16th is now the date. Winners are going to be announced on Saturday, December 21st. If you need some information, WayneCountyHistoricalMuseum.org. A Christmas Carol, the musical, is being performed at the Richmond Civic Theater. If you need more information on that, go rct.org is where you want to go. Morrison Reeves Library has a couple of things taking place. On Friday, a selection of gifts you can make for ages 6 and up. That's happening at 4 o'clock. And then on Saturday, a selection of gifts that you can make for people in your life. Again, ages 6 and up. That's 11 till 3, mrlinfo.org if you want some information. We are going to take a little bit of time off during the holiday season just because we're lazy. We're going to be closed at 3 o'clock on Monday, December 23rd. We'll reopen at 8:30 on Friday, the 27th. But then that following Monday, we're going to shut down a little early and take a little bit more time. And we're going to remind you about something that we talked about in one of our previous In Focus programs. Restoring the Rose and Townsend Community Center, Inc., we want to remind you, are having a Christmas dinner, bringing the community together. This is going to happen on December 22nd, beginning at 5 o'clock at the Richmond National Guard Armory. We talked to Lucinda Wright of Townsend Community Center in our previous In Focus program. Remember, they are not asking you to register for this. They are not asking you to pay for this. This is a community meal and an event that they are putting together, and there is no cost to you. They just want the community to show up and enjoy spending time with each other during this holiday season. So mark that on your calendar. That is December 22nd at 5 p.m. Getting into this evening's show, try not to do a lot of politics during the holidays if we can help it, but we had a chance to have a conversation with a person I'm finding to be interesting as I do a little research. Brian Roth is his name. Brian is here. He is a possible candidate for governor of Indiana. Is that a good way to put it?
That is a good way to put it. Yep, still trying to get enough signatures to get on the ballot. But
okay. Brian has already announced that he wants to do this, but as he mentioned, he needs 500 signatures from each of the 9 congressional districts in the state of Indiana to make it work. But in the meantime, I kind of wanted to hear what he had to say. So, Brian, thank you very much for joining us.
Eric, we appreciate the opportunity, and I apologize for my voice. I've had a little bit of a cold, so my voice is still a little bit not fully restored.
And I imagine you're out there talking to a lot of people and shaking a lot of hands.
We're shaking a lot of hands and talking to a lot of people, for sure.
Before we get into the political part of this and why you're doing this, let's get a little background on you. I know, first of all, and thank you for doing this, you spent 22 years, do I have the number correct?
Yeah, 20 years in the Navy.
In the Navy.
Yes, sir.
Talk about your service.
Sure. Yeah, so I'll go just briefly before that. My wife and I both grew up in Upland, Indiana. I went to Taylor University, had a physics degree. Didn't really know what I was going to do coming out of Taylor. I thought I might teach at one point. I thought I might be a meteorologist at one point. And then I found out that the nuclear Navy had this opportunity. So I went into the nuclear Navy in the submarine force. And I spent 22 years total in the Navy. 12 of those was on active duty, and then 10 in the reserves. And then I retired out of the reserves. Again, my active duty time was in the submarine force. I spent time on 3 different submarines. A ballistic missile submarine on the West Coast, and then 2 fast attack submarines on the East Coast. I really enjoyed the Navy time, going to sea. I tell everybody I didn't join the Navy, we joined the Navy, and people say, "Oh, your wife was in the Navy too?" I'm like, "Absolutely. It's a family event."
Sure.
We had 3 kids, or we have 3 kids. She stayed home with the kids. I went to sea. So it's a family thing. It's not individuals that join the military, it's families that do. So we really enjoyed our Navy time. We moved around a lot. We've been married just over 31 years, and we moved about 20 times.
Wow.
So we get around a lot, and the Navy moved us 10 times in 12 years in active duty. So move around a lot. We've seen a lot of different parts of the country. Indiana's our home. It's always been our home. We both grew up here. We're happy to be back in Indiana, and excited about the opportunity that we have.
I have to ask, out of all the branches of the service, you're here in the Midwest, what made you join the Navy?
Yeah, I mean, so full disclosure, my dad was a physics professor. I did get a physics degree from Taylor, so he would make all his students go to a physics meeting. They really have physics meetings, and they're really boring, just FYI. So it happened to be in Crystal City in Washington, D.C., and so a friend of the family was a retired Marine. He called me and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Suffering in this meeting." I was just being honest. He said, "Hey, I got 2 recruiters I'd like you to talk to." And I said, like military recruiters? He said, "Yeah." I'm like, "I'm not sure that's me." He's like, "Well, seems like you have just 2 choices: stay in the meeting or go talk to the recruiters." I'm like, "Oh, I mean, if you put it that way,
wow,
I'll go
that
talk to the
meeting
recruiters."
was really.
Right? It was pretty. Well, I mean, they're really smart people, really excited about what they're doing, but it's not always exciting to everybody else. Let's just say that. So I talked to the Air Force and just didn't feel like the right fit. But when the Navy recruiter talked to me, I mean, they do all the aircraft carriers and submarines are nuclear powered. So that was interesting. I'm like, hey, physics, nuclear power. And the submarine thing just always kind of had an appeal to me. I don't know if it's because I grew up in a small town, but just the smaller group. On an aircraft carrier, you have 5,000 people. On a submarine, you have 120. So
But you're locked into this tube.
You are in a relatively small tube, but you don't really think about it when you're underway. I tell people, they say, "What's it like being under the water?" I say, it's very similar to flying in an airplane. If you're flying in an airplane and it's calm, and you shut your eyes, you can maybe even forget I'm flying. And submarine's the same way. There's no windows or anything, so you forget that you're underwater. You're doing a job. You have a job to do. We're on a mission. We're not, not doing anything, and so you do your job, and you don't really always think about it. We do keep people, the guys on submarines, very busy. Part of that is everything on a submarine that could go wrong is enhanced on a submarine. For example, a small fire in a trash can on a submarine is really bad because there's no place for the smoke to go.
Right.
Where here, you could grab a fire extinguisher, and it's a big, pretty big space. You could open windows, walk out of the building. We don't have that opportunity. So there's a level of stress that's healthy that we try to keep people under in the submarine so there's no complacency or any of those kind of things that go on. So you stay very busy, you stay very engaged. So you sometimes even forget you're underwater, but I would be gone and sometimes even underwater for an extensive period of time. My first patrol in the ballistic missile submarine, we were gone for 88 days, almost 3 months, but we submerged and stayed underwater for 82 straight days without ever
Seriously?
coming out. Oh yeah. So you do spend a lot of time under the water, but so yeah.
And this is probably going to sound like a very flip question, but I'm going to go there anyway. Sure. How did you come out of school with a physics degree and not know what you were going to do with it? That almost doesn't sound like it computes well.
Yeah. Well, I thought I was going to. I played football in college at Taylor. I thought I was going to teach and coach. And you're going to just get all full transparency out of Brian today. When I took an education class where I had to go back to a high school and observe, I was like, okay, I don't think I can do that, right? So I'm like, I was just there a couple years ago, and I didn't think I was that bad. So I was struggling with maybe that's not the right fit for me. So at that point, I like math, I like science. Of course, my dad's a physics teacher, so I probably have some genetics to it, right? So it made sense. Taylor didn't have an engineering program at the time, so physics still made sense. And so at that point in the 80s, there was just a lot of things you could do with a physics degree. I mean, again, meteorology, you could go into engineering. There was a lot of options that kind of came out of physics. But I didn't want to do something that, and this isn't bad for everybody, but it just wasn't the right thing for me. I didn't want to do something that just stuck me behind a desk. I was too active. I like to kind of have my hands in too many things. So I was looking for something that would give me new experiences where I could use the technical skills, but also the leadership side. Honestly, the leadership side of things is really a part of me that was always there. I didn't really know that much about it until I joined the Navy. But when I got to my first submarine, coming from a small town, I assumed that if you were the captain of a nearly $1 billion submarine, that you'd be a good leader. I didn't have any other reason to think differently than that, I guess. But then I showed up to my first submarine and I kind of had my first crisis of leadership. Either that was good leadership and I didn't know what it was, or it wasn't and I needed to figure it out because what I was seeing didn't feel like good leadership. And it was puzzling because I would have thought, again, nearly $1 billion submarine, you must be a good leader, but I found out that's just simply not true. It's not true in business, not true in the military. There are people that elevate to fairly high levels in organizations that don't really understand leadership. And I think in part it's because, and I don't know when it happened, somewhere along the line we took leadership and management and we kind of put them together. And we see them as maybe two sides of the same coin. We believe they're two separate equally important coins, but they're not two sides of the same coin. And so I think people say I'm leading, but they're really managing because they haven't been able to really differentiate the two. And I think that's what I was feeling. So I really started studying leadership. I thought I got to figure it out because it just didn't feel like I was getting good leadership from the captain. So that was the other thing I think that maybe took me to the Navy that I wasn't really aware of at the time was my really desire to understand leadership, and coupled with my technical background. I mean, the Navy was a perfect fit for that.
You're watching In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We're speaking with Brian Roth, who is hoping to be on the ballot in May in a primary race with Governor Holcomb. Not there yet, but
Correct.
trying to get there. Yeah. Tell us whatever you feel like you want to share about your family. I know you've mentioned your wife. You've got 3 kids, I think you said?
I do, yeah. My wife, Charisse, is she's amazing. She's very creative. Her technical training is in being a cosmetologist, so doing hair. She did that for a while. She's very creative. She's a great decorator. Really compliments me. I'm not creative at all. Matter of fact, you can't see them, but she didn't love my socks. She's like, really? I dressed you in your socks, right? So I'm like, yeah, well, I picked the socks out. So she's great.
Interesting, socks are a thing now, so you're okay.
There you go. Our oldest son lives in Los Angeles. He's an aspiring singer and actor, along with the other 3 million people or whatever out there. Yeah, he's very creative. So he's been out there almost 5 years. Loves Southern California. Very tough to live in Los Angeles. It's not the cheapest place on the face of the earth, but he lives out there. Our daughter lives here in Indiana. She lives in Wabash, Indiana. Her husband's the head football coach at Wabash High School. Just finished his 2nd season there. They have 1 daughter, 3-year-old. And I can say this to you because I've already told my kids this. If you could skip kids and go right to grandkids, you'd at least consider it because the grandbabies are amazing. You get all good and no bad. So I love my kids, but the grandbabies are something else. And then our youngest son lives in North Carolina. He's in the Marine Corps. He flies C-130s, so kind of the short, stubby 4-prop plane that if you ever watched the Blue Angels, they fly a plane called Fat Albert. That's a C-130, so that's what he flies. It's a multi-mission aircraft in the Marine Corps. They do refuelings of jets and helos. They can carry people. They carry parts. So he flies a lot, which is what he likes. Lives in North Carolina and has 2 kids, a 5-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter. So 3 grandbabies, 3 kids. We love our family. We're very blessed to have the family we do have. And then all of our siblings, my wife and mine, all living here in Indiana.
When you left the military, what did you do?
Yeah, I stayed in the power industry. I didn't stay in the nuclear power industry. I was kind of over the nuclear power at the time. So I went into the gas turbine industry. And at that point, we had settled in Michigan. I ran a power plant in Michigan for a while, about 900 megawatts, gas turbines. Did that for about 10 years and then moved into the corporate world with the same company. It was a power services company, a company that didn't own the power plants but operated them for people that owned them but couldn't operate them. About 20% of the power plants in the U.S. are owned by funds, like a hedge fund or just at Wall Street, to make it simple. So they're financial people, but they're not power plant operators. So we run the plants for them. And then I went into the corporate world there, and I was the vice president of operations for 6 years with that company. Enjoyed that time immensely. We had some rapid growth the 6 years I was there. We started with 22 plants. After 6 years, we're at 45 plants, so we had some really rapid growth. People say why, and again, I bring it back to leadership. I joke a little bit about it that I didn't. They didn't really offer me the job as the vice president. Our youngest son was in school in Florida and college in Florida, and we're down there visiting him. And the president of the company called me and said, "I need your help." And I said, "Sure, boss, whatever you need, happy to help." He said, "I'm gonna fire the vice president of operations, and I need you to help me until I can replace the position." I said, "Sure, happy to help you, but why don't you just hire me?" And he said, "Well, why would I do that?" And I said, "I'm the only one who will give you this guarantee, that if I can't make a noticeable change in 6 months," I mean, he's obviously firing the guy, so something must not be right. Sure. I said, "If I can't make a noticeable change in 6 months with you as the judge and jury, I'll quit. No strings attached. I mean, I'm not looking for a pay raise. You don't have to change my pay. Don't have to do any of that. Give me 6 months. If I can't make a noticeable change in your eyes, I'll quit and do something else." I was there for 6 years. I bring that up because when we do get into the politics side of this, I'm going to say we're only running for a single term, 4 years. And some people, it seems like they love it or hate it. That they like the idea or they don't like the idea. There's nobody in the middle. But part of the reason I believe we can do things in 4 years is I gave myself 6 months in this company to make some change, right? I think we hide behind time. Like, I just need more time. I think if you know where you're going, if you know what you want to get done, you can do things in relatively short periods of time. So I tell that story simply because it's going to connect to something we're going to do later. And then about 18 months ago, my wife and I decided that leadership was really what we wanted to do. It's really where I felt like I could deliver most of my gifting was in communicating a leadership message that's a little unique. So we started our own business. So we're a small business owner now. The business is a leadership consulting business. We primarily do leadership training and development. The name of the company is Employment, the number 2, Deployment. It's, other than it gives you a really long email address, there's some thoughtfulness in the name. So employment is a job. It's something somebody pays you to do. They say, for what I need done and the value I see in your skills, here's what I'm going to pay you to do. It's important. We should have jobs. Deployment's a military term. It's really a mission. The number 2 is an interesting number that if you look at it from one direction, it looks like unity, like in a marriage, the two shall become one. Mm-hmm. But if you look at it from the other direction, it looks like separation, like in the word division. The word division, the die means two visions. So it either means unity or separation. We believe a lot of people see their employment, their job, and the reason they exist on earth as kind of separate and disconnected. And that they probably can't connect. I have to do this for 40 or 45 years. Maybe I can retire, then I'll do something I want to do. Mm-hmm. We don't believe that has to be that way. We believe the reason people have a hard time bringing their employment and their deployment together is because they haven't tapped into their leadership potential. We believe everybody is wired to lead and to manage. When we were created, that in that part of that creation, we have the ability to do the two. Most people have a hard time tapping into their leadership side. It just remains dormant inside of them. The leadership side is the side that lets you see the impossible or see what is possible, lets you see that picture of the future that you're not living in today. It's what gives you that hope of something better is coming, right? That's what helps you take what you're doing and what you think you're really gifted or skilled to do and starts to help you bring those together. Without tapping in the leadership side, oftentimes people just see them separate and distinct. Mm-hmm. And we think by helping people activate their leadership, find the keys to unlock that leadership potential, we can start to help people do this. Can everybody take their job and their deployment and lay it right on top of each other? Maybe not. But can you get them closer together? I think you can. And so that's why we started the company, because we wanted to have that kind of an impact. Mm-hmm. And so it's really the two of us. I do most of the training and the consulting sessions. She runs the business, does all the books and does all that stuff for us. She attends all our training. She does some of the training. We do a personality assessment that we really like, even though I generally don't like them. This one's really good. And she does some of that training because she understands that very well. But we love what we're doing. We've had the ups and downs of small business ownership. It's not easy. Mm-hmm. It's the first time we haven't worked for somebody else. It's hard, right? I mean, business comes and kind of ebbs and flows, right? You get a lot sometimes and then it tapers off, and that steady paycheck you're used to having, it's not that way in small businesses, as small business owners know. So we've enjoyed it for 18 months. We're committed to doing it. We're willing to leave that for a short period of time to go serve the people of Indiana, but then we want to go back to that because we really feel that's what, we're long-term what we're called to go do.
Is now the time, 18 months into a new business, to step off into a different world? You're not, nowhere, we've been talking for, 15 minutes or so.
Sure.
Nowhere have you said political, running for office, student council, nowhere have you dropped any of that.
No.
Why start a business, 18 months later decide, you know what, I want to be governor?
Yeah, I'll throw just one more thing into that too. We just recently published a book. So we're also trying to sell a book. So run a business, I'm trying to sell a book, and we're trying to run for governor. Why? In 2015 is when I really felt called to run for governor in 2020. So I know some people think I just woke up 4 months ago and said, I think I'll run for governor. It didn't happen that way. We knew from about August of 2015 that we were going to run in 2020. Now, the business and all that, I've had lots of people say you're crazy. Maybe so. I will tell you one thing that they won't say about me is when I get to the end of my life, nobody's going to say, man, if he only would have, they're going to say he did a bunch.
He did.
Maybe it didn't all work out, but I just don't want to get to the end and say, I wished I could have. I'm going to say we did. Hey, some things work out, some things don't. That's okay. So is the timing right? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's ever a good time to run for governor. I don't have the political experience. I've never run for office. We thought at the time it would be an open seat. Again, August of 2015, Governor Pence was running for re-election. It wasn't until July-ish of 2016 that we found out, oh, he's now going to be the vice president nominee for then candidate Donald Trump, and Eric Holcomb then got selected by the Republican Central Committee to be the Republican nominee for governor and then became the governor in November. So running against the incumbent is also probably crazy. People don't do that very often. They should. In other words, we believe our elected officials should be challenged. That's the way we believe the system is designed, but it's not really the way it works. The political system really doesn't want that. It's really trying to preserve itself. We'll talk about that more when we get into the political side of this. So yeah, we're new to politics. We're new to, and yeah, timing, I don't know. I mean, it's a great question, Eric. I don't think there's a great time to do it ever, so why not now, I guess.
Okay. You're watching In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We're speaking with Brian Roth, who is trying to get on the ballot to challenge Governor Holcomb in the primary. But let's go there. You need 500 signatures.
We do.
Out of the 9 congressional districts.
We do.
You announced that you were running when?
Last week of September-ish.
Okay. Trying to get 500 does not sound like a large number.
It does not.
When you break it out into congressional districts, which are 40,000 people plus, when you start going north, particularly.
Yep.
Is this process, is getting the 500 signatures out of the 9 congressional districts taking you longer than you thought it would? And is there at some point where you go, okay, this really isn't going to happen?
I won't say it's not going to happen until February 7th, because that's when they have to be turned into the state.
Okay.
Is it taking longer than I would like? Yes. It took the governor about 3 months to get his. He announced, I think, July 13th, and then about 3 months down the road, I saw an email saying he had got his signature. So we were hoping to do it in about 2 months. I'm pretty optimistic. Sometimes my optimism maybe puts me out over my skis, so to speak. So it's taken a little longer than we would have liked. We're gaining momentum. I think part of what hurt us initially was there was a lot of contested local races places, like in the city of Fort Wayne, Muncie. The people helping us are people that like politics or are engaged in politics. They were engaged in those local races. So until that ended the first week of November, I think we got out of the gate a little slow. We're definitely gaining momentum. We're getting invited places that are allowing us to meet the right people. So we probably have, and honestly, we're losing track a little bit, but we probably have 60 plus people helping us. And so we're gaining a lot of momentum. How many do we have? I don't have a hard and fast number because we don't have all the information back from everybody because they're scattered all over the state. I feel like we're getting close to half, maybe a little bit north of halfway. We have some big events coming up. We're in Plymouth, Indiana tomorrow night for a meet and greet. So certainly, generally out of those meet and greets, not only do we get signatures, people will take signature sheets, petition sheets, and go off and say, I'll go get some more for you. So that's good. We're down in Starlight, Indiana, down south, the 18th, next Wednesday. So those things are happening. We've got a ton of events in January going on. So we're very confident we'll get on the ballot. We believe the Republican Party will let us on the ballot. I mean, ultimately, the county clerks and then the state has to let us on the ballot.
You said that with a little hedge in your voice.
Well, Eric, let me just be honest with you. When the chairman of the GOP is also the governor's campaign manager, you've kind of circled the wagons around the governor, right? You've kind of formed a tight-knit group. Does that group control me getting on the ballot? For sure. Because a lot of those county clerks are Republicans, right? That's an elected position. They're the ones validating signatures. So we're told that a lot of signatures get thrown out.
But if your signatures get validated, you have 500 out of each of the 9 congressional districts. Can they really keep you from being on the ballot at that point?
They would have a hard time, I think. Would they try? Potentially. I don't know. They don't really want a competition. They don't really want the governor to be challenged, which in this case, in this specific instance, I think to most people, it's kind of ludicrous because he didn't run in the primary last time. If you remember, Governor Pence ran in the primary, and then Governor Holcomb was one of 3 people that the Republican Central Committee picked from.
Right.
So he's never been in a primary. So it certainly seems like it would make him better. I mean, it's great that Walmart and Target go in side by side, or Meijer and Walmart go in side by side. It's good for you and I. It makes Walmart and Target both get better. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't it help the governor, so to speak, sharpen his pencil if I ran against him? It seems like it would make him a better candidate. It seems like it would make him a better governor. It seems like all these reasons why you would say, absolutely, we're not going to try to keep you from the ballot. We hope you get on the ballot. That's just not the feeling we get, right? We hear a lot of stories about the number of signatures that get thrown out. I don't know if you remember when Todd Young was running against Marlon Stutzman, there was the big issue up in District 1 saying Todd Young didn't have enough signatures. I hear he had upwards to 1,000 and barely got 500 out of that. So there is ways signatures get discredited. Oh, I can't read it. It does require a signature, a printed name, a printed address. We're finding out, I guess, because everybody types. People don't print very good anymore. So it is hard to read. We get some back. We're like, it's a little hard to read, right? So if you can't read it, it's hard to validate it as a registered voter. So we're hoping that it doesn't come to that we have plenty of signatures, that there's really not a desire to really keep us off the ballot. But we're not naive. We know that there's only one reason why the chairman of the GOP is the governor's campaign manager, and that's because they've decided, the leadership of the GOP, Republican Party in Indiana, has decided the governor should be the nominee. The people haven't decided that yet, but they have. And so we're trying to give the people an option. That's it. If we can give them an option, we think that's healthy.
There are issues that drive people to the election. Or keep them away from elections. Let's talk about a couple that you've talked about. You mentioned that you were in Indiana for Red for Ed Day.
I was.
Talk about education. Talk about what you believe if you were governor, or even if you were on the ballot running. Talk a little bit about what you believe as far as education in this state.
Yeah. If you just permit me for a minute to take just a step back, I feel like I need to give you a little background. So the political system has conditioned us to only think in terms of issues. What's your stance on this? What's your stance on that? What's your stance on this? I see issues as kind of dots on a whiteboard, but those dots don't necessarily form a picture. And so we go from election cycle to election cycle with just dots and dots with really no picture. And so there's a lot of issues that are talked about and things happen, but where do we go?
There's no solutions talked about.
Right, and where have we moved? In other words, we often refer to that as the treadmill effect. When I was on the USS Ohio, my first submarine, I ran 13 miles on a treadmill, staring at the back of a missile tube. I was sweating and tired, but the missile tube, same ugly color, didn't change at all in 13 miles. And that's what I feel like happens election cycle to election cycle, oftentimes because we want to talk about issues without where those issues take us. So what we're trying to do is say, we need direction and we need a way to get there. That's why, and I know this has confused some people, if you look at our logo, our current logo, working on improving it, but if you look at our current logo, it says United but Independent Indiana. People have been confused because they say, oh, he's running as an independent. I'm not, I'm running as a Republican. But united but independent is this idea of united in destination, but independent in pathway there. And we sometimes describe it this way. If we decide we want to go to Orlando, Florida, to Disney World, we're united in destination. How we get there, we should discuss that. You might want to drive. I'm probably going to want to fly. If we decide to drive, maybe you want to drive through the night. I want to stop for the night. Maybe you want to take I-75 through Cincinnati. I live in Indianapolis. I want to take 65 down. Those are all viable options. They all get us to the same place. They all get us to Orlando. We should debate that. What happens is we don't set destination or direction, and so we just debate things. But they don't take us anywhere. If we didn't agree on destination, we just said, hey, Eric, let's take off. Where are we going? I don't know. We'll just take off. Let's just get going. Where are we going to end up? I don't know. right? And that's what I think happens cycle to cycle to cycle. So what we're trying to do is say, we first need to say, where are we going? Then let's debate. Republicans and Democrats, independent, let's all debate what's the best way to get there. But we have to agree on where we want to go. So like when I look at the governor's campaign site, I look at his education points, I think there's 6, and I think 5 of them have to do with money. Where's the money taking us? More money, K through 12 education. Where's the money take us? I don't know. Maybe he knows. Maybe other people know. I don't know. So when it comes to education, and here's what we told the teachers. We passed out a postcard and we said our vision for education has 3 pieces to it. Our destination. The first one is kids are the focus of education. And you go, okay, well, they're not today. Not if you talk to teachers. Teachers say the focus of education is the test. Kids passing the test.
Right.
That is the focus. I don't believe that's a destination. I think that's a mistake.
Do you believe that statement from the teachers?
Because it's from a vast majority of teachers. It's not 1 or 2 teachers. It's almost every teacher we talked to down there. We had spent some time with some teachers in Fort Wayne before the meeting, before the event in Indianapolis. Almost every teacher we've talked to says the focus really is on the test, and the kids know it. So if you're a history teacher, hey, it's not on the test, right? It's math and English. History is kind of a secondary subject, right? We had a band teacher tell us that he kind of feels like a second-class citizen almost because he has parents and students saying, are you like a real teacher? Like band's not a real thing anymore, right? So we firmly believe the focus is not on kids and that we need to set that as a place we need to go. The second one was that school districts should be encouraged and empowered to make decisions. We hear from a lot of school districts, one, either they don't have decision-making power or they're afraid to because of just liability concerns and not believing the state has their back. We need to set another way, stop centralizing education in Indianapolis and push it back out. Education is not the same north to south, east to west in the state of Indiana. It's not even the same K through 12 in a single school district. This idea that we can take one education model and make it fit north to south, east to west, East Allen County, IPS, different, right? I mean, we have to be able, you only can do that locally. So when we say that school districts should be empowered and encouraged to make, that's what we mean, push power back out. You're gonna find that very quickly from me. I'm not a centralized government guy. I think decisions made closest to where the issues are generally are the best decisions. When you start making decisions 2 or 3 or 4 layers detached from where the issue is, not as good. They're just not as good. That's why I'm not a fan of battlefield decisions in the military being made from Washington, D.C. when the battle's overseas somewhere. It should be made by people that are in theater, that are there. I know, technology lets us do it. No, it doesn't. It does not. It's different, right? So that's what we mean, and that's the second one. The third one is, I know it's earth-shattering, Eric, the ideas, that teachers should be empowered to bring innovative and creative teaching techniques back into the classroom. It's another thing we hear from teachers all the time, that we don't really get to teach anymore. There's not time for us to be innovative, creative. We're not encouraged to be innovative and creative. Matter of fact, we're discouraged. Why? It's about the test. We've got to pass the test. We've got to pass the test. Why? Because the funding formula is all based on that. So that was the vision. Then we listed 6 more things that we just said we believe about education. One is parents ought to be accountable and responsible for the kids' education. It's not the government. It's not the teachers. It should be parents. They should be. Now, parents need resources. That's why we have schools, and that's why we should be supporting that. The Indiana State Constitution says, hey, we need to educate our citizenship, and I'll get to that in a minute, but that's one. We don't think the standardized tests ought to be punitive. This idea that we're basing funding or we're basing teachers' assessments on the test doesn't make any sense. I heard it described to me this way. Does your dentist get held accountable for the number of cavities you have? No. No, you get held accountable, right? But that's what we're kind of doing to teachers. We're saying, although a kid doesn't come to school all the time and maybe the parents aren't invested in their kid's education, you're still accountable for that kid if that kid doesn't want to learn. You can't make somebody learn, right? So we don't think it should be punitive. We think a standardized test, if used, should be used to improve curriculum and to help kids. That's why it was designed in the first place, was to help kids, assess the kids, and give them extra help and instruction if they needed it. We think parents ought to have quality choices for education. Now, that didn't go over great down there. These were a bunch of public school teachers who wanted me to say public school is the only platform we should have. I don't believe that. I believe parents should have quality choice. If I'm going to say parents are accountable and responsible for their kids' education, I kind of have to give them quality choices, right? I can't say, you're accountable and responsible, but your kid has to go to school here. Some kids are great in public schools. Our kids all went to public schools. Some kids are probably better for private schools, right? There's very good public schools. There's bad public schools. There's good private schools. There's bad private schools. There's good charter schools. There's bad charter schools. There ought to be quality options. To do that, you need some kind of an even playing field. Everybody should be playing by the same set of rules. Whatever those rules are, we should all be playing by those rules.
Do you think those rules are fair now?
No, because they're not all playing by the same rules. I mean, charter schools and private schools and public schools don't all play by the same rules. So we think there should be an even set of playing, or an even playing field. And then parents should have quality choices. We think that should be the case. I got asked a lot about vouchers. I think the voucher program has merit. I think it needs to be looked at. I think maybe it's gotten a little out of control, so I need to dig into a little bit more there. But again, my focus is on kids, districts making decisions, teachers teaching again, parents being accountable for that. And if parents are accountable, they need quality choices for their kids. So how vouchers play into that, I got to think through that a little bit more. I don't know that I have all the information I need to talk specifically about that today. But that's the kind of stuff we talk to teachers about. Now there's a lot of details that need to get us there, but we need to go somewhere. Like, I don't see that today. Like, when I hear people talk about education in Indiana, I don't hear those kind of things. Now, do you suppose any teachers down there disagreed with me? No. I mean, how do you disagree with kids should be the focus of education? How can a lawmaker do that? People say, look, you'll never get people united. This united but independent, never going to happen. I say, so you think if I walk into the State House and I say to a bunch of legislators, who here doesn't think kids should be the focus of education? Who's going to raise their hand, right? I mean, right? That's going to go back to the district pretty quick. Oh, hey, your congressman or woman doesn't think kids should be. Nobody's going to say that, right? I mean,
But that's, and I absolutely get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's a broad statement that no one is going to disagree with. But the trick isn't about the broad statement. It's about how you get there. Can you lead the conversation that finally gets the state there, and not the conversation that is just about money?
Yeah, let me take you back to a statement I made earlier, and I'm going to answer your question.
You're
what
good.
what I'm
Okay.
trying to do, and again, maybe different than what you're used to, I'm trying to help you understand how I think about these things. I think it's really important that people understand how I think, not just what I think. Typically, our politicians tell us what they think, but we have no idea why they're thinking that.
Right.
I said that leadership and management are equally important but different. Leadership is what points us in a direction. So those things I talked about are leadership. They're about uniting people. Management is about making the ship run well. If I point the ship in the right direction but it doesn't move, not very effective. If I point the ship in the wrong direction and it moves great, not very effective. Or if I don't point the ship at all, and I'm not very effective. It's the combination of both that's the trick. It's not one or the other. It's not direction doesn't matter, how to get there does, or how to get there doesn't matter, only direction. It's the combination of both. So we have to first say, where are we going? What direction do we need to go? Then let's debate how we get there. What does it mean then to say kids need to be the focus? Do we need a standardized test for kids to be the focus of education? Let's talk about it. Let's debate it. Let's discuss it. Maybe there's some reasons why people would say, sure, we do. Some people might say we don't. But all of those discussion points have to be doing one thing, getting us there. Just like I said, if we're going to go to Orlando, drive, fly, whatever, but I didn't say that we could drive north on I-69. I said we take 75 or 65. I didn't say we can go north on I-69. Why? It's not going to get us there. We have to throw out ideas that aren't getting us there. If we don't know where there is, then every idea is good, right? And so that's why we have thousands of bills that get introduced that we probably don't need. In other words, we don't know where we're going, so we just throw a bunch of ideas out there, and then we pick the ones we want, and we say, oh, it was great legislative session. But again, where are we going? So it's the combination of both. If we don't know where we're going, there's no way to debate. That's why we say united in destination, independent in pathway. United in where we're going, but independent. You have ideas, I have ideas, independent thinking in how we get there. Let's debate, let's disagree. let's argue. I'm okay even with that, right? As long as all of that stuff is pointing us there. We'll come up with the best way to get us there. So it's the combination of both that's key. So how do you unite a legislature that really holds the power? The governor in Indiana doesn't hold the power, the legislature does. How do you unite a legislature that probably most of them, should I be elected, aren't going to be big fans of me? We agree on where we're going. And sometimes that has to start at a high level, like kids are the focus of education. And then when ideas come up that aren't about the kids, then we say, wait a second, how does that help kids be the focus? If the answer is we don't know, well, that's not an idea we're talking about. That idea goes away. It's not getting us there, so we don't need to talk about it. So I believe we can. I think in families and kids, the same thing. We can unite around that. So I believe, look, I've just done this all my life, right? I've united people around ideas, and then we've debated how best to get there. People say you can't do it in the government. Huh? I mean, aren't those people in the government? I mean, people are people are people. We're all wired in a similar way. If it's worked other places, in the military, for-profit, nonprofits, why wouldn't it work in the government? I believe it can. I believe it will. Given the opportunity, we'll demonstrate.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be back. We're speaking with Brian Roth, who is trying to become a candidate for governor for the state of Indiana. And we'll continue with In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV, Channel 11.
Hi, I'm Dave Paxton, and it's beginning to look a lot like the holidays edition of Access to the Arts. So join us as we talk to some of the people around the Richmond and Wayne County area that are making the arts happen as we head into the holiday season.
Our Christmas show, yes, and it's Christmas Carol the musical. So it is the classic tale of, Scrooge. Everybody loves that story.
You'll want to join us Thursdays at 9 on WETV Channel 20.
When we look at public health preparedness, we look at the overall health of the community during a disaster. When you look at a public health disaster, there are numerous things that people can do to take care of themselves. And whether that's good hygiene, washing your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap and warm water when you touch things, not touching your hand to your face, but also if you look at a long-term public health disaster, you want to make sure that you have a great family disaster kit available, meaning that you have at least 72 hours worth of food, water, medications, those daily commodities that we need to live off every day. The best thing that you can do in a public health disaster is to stay informed. Listen to your government officials and what they suggest. If there's vaccines that we need to get or medications that we need to get in a disaster, make sure that you have those. But more than anything, make sure that you are educated, that you are prepared, and that you are well informed through the agencies that are helping to help you.
Hi, I'm Eric Marsh, host of Eastern Indiana Works. On this month's show, we'll revisit some conversations that we had during this first year. We'll also have a conversation with Denny Burns, Wayne County Commissioner, and we'll hear from Mike Rao.
And it's very rural in nature overall, so it's very interesting and fun to serve in such a great region.
Eastern Indiana Works, Tuesday evenings at 10:30 on WETV, Channel 20. Welcome back to In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. I'm Eric Marsh. Thanks for joining us. We're speaking with Brian Roth, who is trying to become a candidate for governor in our 2020 election. Needs 500 signatures out of 9 congressional districts. If you are liking what you're hearing, if someone wants to sign up just to hear you a little bit more and in the race, what needs to happen real quick?
Yeah, the easiest thing to do is they can go to Brian Roth, that's Brian with an I, .org. That's our website. There's a volunteer form they can fill out. We'll contact them, or they can just send an email directly to me. It's brian@brianroth.org. Just let us know, hey, they're interested in either hearing more, interested in signing, interested in helping us get us signatures, and we'll get out there. On the way here, we stopped at a house near Connersville and got 3 signatures because they had reached out to us, and we said, hey, well, we're going to Richmond. We'll stop on the way. So
there you go.
That's how it goes. I mean, 3 is not 4,500, but it's It's 3 more we
It's
had.
3
right?
more that you have.
So that's the way, and certainly anybody that wants to help, we'll be more than happy to talk to them.
The way you're talking, and we've got about 12 minutes or so left.
Sure.
The way you're talking about changing things, about trying to change the thought process,
Yeah.
is a little bit different.
Yeah.
The political system, and a lot of people have said it, nationally, locally, state level,
Yeah.
seems to be a little bit broken. To hear people say it doesn't work for me, which is
Yeah.
why I'm not voting and why I'm not getting in, that's not a new statement.
Right.
You're making that statement and trying to run for a political office.
Yeah.
What do you think is wrong with the political system, and
Yeah.
can it be fixed?
Sure. Yeah, short answer is yes, we think it can, and let me try to explain why. We believe there are systems or institutions that govern our existence. Family, religion or church, government or politics, business, education, media, healthcare. They're the things that we interact in all the time, every day. We think they're equally important, those systems, and they serve a specific function. In other words, they ought to be horizontally or vertically aligned side by side.
Okay.
That's not what we have today, we don't think. What we think we have today is the political system sits on top of the other systems, and it squeezes them. And as it squeezes them, it pulls power and authority and influence away from them. That's why the political system grows uncontrollably. Even in the state of Indiana, which, a very general statement, people would say, well, supermajority Republican governor, in general should be smaller. It grows like crazy. Our government is just growing. Even under the current governor, it's growing. Why? Because there's nothing to constrain it. If they were to sit vertically like they're supposed to, then they're constrained by each other. They interact with each other, but they're constrained. There's no constraint because the political system is sitting on top and there's nothing to constrain it. So it continues to pressure all the other systems. And for example, it's pulled moral authority away from the church.
The government has.
The government has, or we'll just say the political system has. It's pulled it away from the religious system. That's why today, which it's a little ludicrous in my personal opinion, the political system tries to tell us what's moral and immoral.
Yes.
But that was never the design. If you look at the founders, even what they wrote in the Declaration of Independence, and that is, by the way, it's repeated in our state constitution, but it's those 35 words that start with, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their capital C creator. Okay, I was bad in English. I told you as a physicist, I'm bad in English. Got a 450 in the verbal SAT when I took it a long time ago. But I remembered a capital letter in a noun means it was a person, place, or thing. So capital C creator is a person. So that person is who endowed or gifted us with these rights. That concept means that moral authority shouldn't reside in the political system. It should reside in the religious system. And even if you look at the Bible at all, if you're a Bible reader at all, you know, Jesus would say things like, give to Caesar what's Caesar and give to God what's God's. Caesar was an example of the political system and God the religious system. So we have to realign the systems. If we don't, the political system's never going to work for the people because the political system is designed to work for itself. That's why the political system's become a winning and losing system. But it's not designed to be that way. I'll say one other thing. I don't want to have a ton of time, but there's a guy named Simon Sinek who wrote a book called Start With Why years ago, made him very popular. He just came out with a new book called The Infinite Games. He talks about two kinds of games, a finite game and an infinite game. A finite game has known players, known rules, and a defined outcome, winner or loser, a football game. You know the players on the team, you know the rules of the game, and somebody wins and loses. An infinite system has known and unknown players, rules that can change, and you play the game to keep the game going. Those systems or institutions I talked about, family, religion, politics, they're all infinite systems. Your family has known and unknown players. It's going to have probably more people that you don't know yet at some point will be born. The rules can change. The way I raise my kids, maybe slightly different than the way my parents raised me, and the way our kids are raising their kids a little different. I went to a different occupation. The rules can change, and the game keeps going. The political system is designed to be that way. It should have known and unknown players, but it doesn't. If you're not a known player, you don't get to play. That's what the political system says. That's why they don't want somebody like me running. I'm an unknown player. I'm not politically active. I haven't been in a bunch of political elections before. They're like, you're not on the team, you don't get to play. It's not the way it's set up. It's an infant game. I should get to play. The rules can change. We like to hide. The political system likes to hide behind, we can't do it because the law doesn't let us. Oh, we can't get rid of the standardized test because it's written in the law we have to have the test. Well, change the law. You wrote it. Change, right? The rules ought to be able to change. We ought to say we need to do this for the kids, change it. And again, it's not only about winning and losing. Now, there are finite games that sit inside infinite games. I get political elections have a winner and loser, right. But we shouldn't be playing just to win and lose. In other words, we shouldn't be saying, here's the right thing to do, and here's my political future. Maybe I'll do this because I want to win again. Tell me a politician that doesn't do that, they're not very easy to find. And I'm not busting on every politician, but most politicians make decisions with the right answer or the facts in one hand and their political future in the other hand. You see it even today with the impeachment things going on nationally. Like, why didn't we bring these other articles of impeachment? Well, we thought it might hurt some Democrats. It's about not what, if it's right, then bring them. But that's not the way the political system works. The political system says it's about winning and losing, so I don't have to worry about that. I'm only running for a single term, 4 years. Nobody's gonna have to worry about, is Brian doing this because he wants to get reelected or is he doing it because it's the right thing? Brian's only gonna do, I'm talking about myself in third person, but I'm only gonna do what I think is right.
You've said you're only gonna run for one term.
I am.
You've also said you're going to donate your salary.
I did say that, yeah. My accountant, who doubles as my wife, is not overly excited about that all the time, but here's why. We're running for a single term because we think in 4 years we can do what needs to be done. We think we can realign the political system, or at least start that process such that undoing it will be very hard to do. We believe we can help families and kids. We can start moving families and kids to a better place, that we can move education to a better place. And this idea of united but independent, we can get people both looking at destination and pathway, which is not what's happening today. We think we can do that in 4 years. The reason we're going to donate our salary is we're not looking for a job. We don't believe professional politicians were the design of the founders had in mind. It was a service opportunity. We served 22 years in the Navy. Yeah, we got paid while we were there, but you don't go in the military because you get paid a lot. You go in there because you want to serve, right? And we're willing to serve again for 4 years. And so if I say I'm not looking for a job, or I want to go serve and then go back to my day job, which I do. I want to go serve for 4 years, serve the people, and I want to continue to teach leadership. I want to continue to help people unlock their leadership potential so they can move their employment and deployment closer together. I don't feel right taking money if I say I'm not looking for a job. So we're going to donate. It would help if we're independently wealthy. We're not. But that doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter whether we're independently wealthy or not. If it's the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do. We believe the right thing to do is donate the salary to nonprofits in the state of Indiana. And we will do that, should we be elected.
Okay. We are quickly running out of time. So I'm going to give you a minute to say whatever to our viewing audience, outside of write me a check for exactly this figure, that you feel you haven't had a chance to say, or someplace I haven't talked to you about during this hour.
Sure. Yeah, I think what we want to just appeal to the people that would be listening to this is we really do want to give people an option. That's really what we want to do, and that's really our focus right now. I know there's more specific issues we need to get to. We get issues sent to us all the time. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Those are great things. But if we're not on the ballot, you don't get a choice. What we tell people is, if you went to a movie theater with 16 movie screens and there's only one movie playing, maybe it's The Sound of Music. You might like The Sound of Music. I personally do. You may hate The Sound of Music. You might, well, why is the movie theater decide what I get to watch? That's kind of what's happening in the Republican Party. The Republican Party is saying you only have one movie. Right now it's Governor Holcomb. We're saying, shouldn't there be two? To do that, we need to get on the ballot. If you can help us either sign or get additional signatures, take some sheets, get your friends and families and coworkers to sign, we'd be forever indebted to you because we believe that's really important. BrianRoth.org or Brian@BrianRoth.org. Either way, you can reach out to us. Eric, I certainly appreciate the time and the opportunity to talk to you.
No problem. Quick question. Why, if you're getting pushback from the Republican Party, why not just run as an independent?
In order to impact the system, I first have to play by the rules of the system. Running as an independent, it's almost impossible to win. And you see that, again, nationally. The lifelong independent Bernie Sanders had to become a Democrat to run for president. it's very hard to win as an independent. It's easier. You say, well, you run against a incumbent. I know. It's still easier to win as a Republican. The system just doesn't, it's a two-party system. As much as we maybe don't like it, it is. It's a Republican and Democrat system. You have to pick one to run. I align more with Republican fundamentally, I think, than a Democrat fundamentally. So that's why I'm running as a Republican. I've always been a registered Republican, so that made sense. If I really thought I could win as an independent, I would consider it. I'm very independent in my thinking, but I align much more on, I think, with Republican traditional thinking, conservative thinking, maybe is a better way to say that. So that's why I'm running as a Republican. But it's a good question.
Okay, Brian, thank you very much for your time.
I appreciate
the
Thank
service.
you, sir. Thanks so much.
A couple of things to remind you of before we head out of here. There are lots of things taking place in the community during this holiday season. We want to try to get you to a few. This Saturday from 1 to 4, the Wayne County Food Council's annual cookie crawl is going to be taking place. Ready, set, bake. Check it out. WayneFood.org for more information on that. The Webster Fire Department and Auxiliary cordially invites you to their annual Breakfast with Santa, Pictures with Santa, December 14th, 8 to 11. 5122 West Main Street in Webster. There's a phone number there on the screen if you want to know some more information. A little post-Christmas, because the kids are going to be home and they need something to do. Family fun Christmas bell crafts taking place Saturday, December 28th in the Children's Program Room at Morrison Reeves Library, 80 North 6th Street, mrlinfo.org for more information. Also on the 28th and 29th, check this out. They always have some really interesting things at the Joseph Moore Museum, 801 National Road West. They have Season of Light, so you should definitely check that out, get more information from the Joseph Moore Museum. Also, don't forget Whitewater Community Television will be taking a little bit of time off. We'll be shutting down on 3 o'clock on the 23rd and reopening at 8:30 on Friday, December 27th. If you missed any of this program and want to catch it, it is back on the air tonight at 10:30, tomorrow night at 8 p.m., Saturday at 8 a.m. and 9 p.m., Sunday at 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. It will also be available on WGTV Online, our video on demand site, and you can hear the audio of this program on 100.9 and 1490 WKBV ESPN Radio beginning at 6 o'clock. Thank you very much for watching this program. We greatly appreciate your support. Hope you get out and enjoy what's happening in the community this weekend. Have yourself a great one. I wish you well.